Yes, indeed, YouTube. It's your guy. So we back at it with another Quick Tech Tip Tuesdays. So for today, we've got picking the right amount of power for your subwoofers. So I'm gonna try to run through this as quick and as simple as possible. So, for example, say you've got a 500 watt subwoofer. It's rated at 500 watts RMS. How much power would you need to power that? That is the question. Okay. So I know a few might have said 500 watts. A few might have said the minimum of 300 watts. Some people might have said 6, 7, 8. But for my recommendation, for a 500 watt sub, to power it, you need minimum of 1,000 watts RMS. And the reason I say that is because for those who don't know, there's a thing called impedance, ohmage. And when you wire a subwoofer to an amp, you have to match the impedance of the subwoofer to the amp, which tells you how much power your amp will be giving your subwoofer. For those who already know, this might seem that second nature to you. Might just want to skip on forward a little bit. But for the novice who knows nothing about car audio, you do not just say, hey, I've got a 500 watt sub, I get a 500 watt amp, and it's good. That is not how it works. It's a little bit more technical than that. Well, a lot more. But for this video, we're just gonna go a little further. So, as you can see, the amp we've got here for reference is the Stetson EX8000 EQ. As you can see, it's rated at 8,000 RMS at 1 ohm. Now, a lot of people that are novices to this car audio, they skip all of the information. They just look at what the manufacturers want to show you. That big number, 8,000. 8,000. As you can see, they've got it on there twice. Everything else is on there once. But the advertisement is doubled up. 8,000, big there. 8,000 RMS, big there. But one of the most important things that you need to see is the thing that's labeled the smallest on there, and that's the at 1 ohm. So, first and foremost, this amp is rated to put out 8,000 RMS at 1 ohm. A little bit more technical at 12.5 volts. But we won't go that far for now. We'll just keep it kind of basic. So, you may be thinking, all right, I got 8,000 watts. I go get 8,000 watts worth of subs and I'm good. No. First of all, the subs that you get, in order to get that 8,000 RMS, your subs have to be wired down to 1 ohm. And that's the first thing you need to think about. If you got a dual 4 ohm sub, you'll never get the full RMS power of your amp at 1 ohm. Because a dual 4 ohm sub will never be able to bridge down to 1 ohm. So, in purchasing an amp and in purchasing subwoofers, that ohmage is extremely important for you to pay attention to. Because in order to get that 8,000 watts RMS, your amp has to be at 1 ohm. Okay? So, now we got that covered. You need subwoofers to be bridged down to 1 ohm. In order to do that, you have to have 2 dual 4 ohm subwoofers, or 1 dual 2 ohm subwoofer, or 4 dual 2 ohm subwoofers. And so on and so forth. Yeah, math is a big part of this. So like I said, for the basic installer, you either got 2 or 1 subs. So if you got a 1 ohm stable amp, you need to make sure that your subs, if it's 1, it's a dual 2. So you wire it positive to positive, negative to negative. It brings it down to 1 ohm, and you'll be able to get the full power that your amp is rated at that ohm rating. If you got 2 subs, you prefer for them to be dual 4 ohms. Therefore, you bridge them all the way down. It'll bring it down to 1 ohm. So for a single sub, prefer to get dual 2 ohms. For dual subs, prefer to get dual 4 ohms. That's the first and the basics of even attempting to get the maximum output out of your amplifier. Okay? Next, when you hook up a subwoofer, there's something and put power to it, there's something that occurs, and it's called impedance rise. What is impedance? Impedance is the ohmage of your subwoofers. Ohmage is measured in impedance. So your subwoofer, say, is a dual 2 ohm. We wire it down to 1 ohm. When you play music to it, the subwoofer does not stay at 1 ohm. When you pump music to it, it rises and falls. So that's what you have. It's called impedance rise. Now, some educated, or some people that just, have gotten used to the slang term, they call it box rise. But I'm here to tell you that box rise, it's not impossible, but it's not anything that has to do with electronics. Box rise is you pick your box up off the floor and rise it to how you want it. But I mean, it's not a technical electrical term. You don't have box rise. You have impedance rise. For anybody that doesn't get that or doesn't kind of understand what I'm saying, it's simple. You don't need a box for your subwoofer to rise in impedance. You don't even need power. All you need to do, get your multimeter, hook it up to your subwoofer, and then push up and down on the cone, and you'll see the impedance change. That's what we're talking about. So, to the next step, if you've got 1,000 watts, for example, say you've got 8,000 watts worth of subs, RMS. You've got it wired down to 1 ohm. The amp puts out 8,000 at 1 ohm. Are the subs going to see that 8,000 watts? No, because you have what we were just talking about, impedance rise. In the process of playing music, the ohmage on your subwoofer rises and falls depending on, the frequency and the movage of the subwoofer itself. Therefore, 8,000 watts worth of subwoofers, an 8,000 watt amp is not enough. So, now that we've run through all of the basics to get to the understanding of where we're at now, to our general statement, is that you need more than the stated power to run your subs at that power, if that makes any sense. It's an 8,000 watt amp on 8,000 watt rated subs. The subs are not going to see 8,000 watts because the amp is not going to stay at 1 ohms. As the music plays, the ohmage is going to rise, which essentially is going to drop the power that your subs are seeing. So how do we combat that? The safe way. Now, a lot of people do little different things. In extreme SPL and us veterans, we sometimes wire our amps below that rated ohmage. But trust and understand that is at your own risk. When your amp states that it's rated to play at 1 ohm, what that means is that your amp is warranted at 1 ohm. And that's if you got it from a reputable supplier that'll honor the warranty. So, when you do, as us, SPL guys do, and drop your amp below 1 ohm, you instantly void the warranty. Which, is the chance that we take, or maybe not so much of a chance. It comes along with knowing the equipment that you're running and knowing the electrical and everything that you've got going on in your personal system and how your system responds to be able to handle that. But for a general installer, it is not recommended, I repeat, not recommended, for you to run your amps below rated ohmage. Okay, so how do we combat the inevitable loss of power from ohm rise, from impedance rise? Simple. If you have, like I say, we got this out here, so we use this for example. For a 8,000 watt RMS sub setup, in order to play that efficiently and give it the power, just by a rule of thumb, what I do is I take the amp's power rating at 4 ohm. And that's just my general rule of thumb to be safe. It's what I tell my customers. It's what I tell my friends. Look, if your subs are rated to handle 1,000 watts, you want an amp that puts out 1,000 watts at 4 ohms. Why? Because when the inevitable impedance rise happens, you've got the power there. If you get an amp that's rated at 1,000 watts and put it on a 1,000 watt sub, when the music plays, your sub's only going to get maybe 500 to 600 watts because of impedance rise. Therefore, my general rule is if I have 1,000 watt sub, I don't go get a 1,000 watt amp. I go get maybe a 1,500 watt amp, a 2,000 watt amp, because I want the amp to be able to put out the power I need at 4 ohms, which is, say a 4 ohm rise, a 4 ohm impedance rise is, it's kind of extreme for some, but not for others. That's the general rule for me. So, for an example, 1,000 watt system. Say you got subs. You just went out and bought you some subs. The subs are rated at 1,000 watts RMS together, 500 each. So you need 1,000 watts to go to your subs. You do not need a 1,000 watt amp. You need a 1,500 to a 2,000 watt amp. When you go to purchase your amp, you want to make sure that it puts out the power that you need at 4 ohms. If that makes any sense, yes sir, it's your guy, Quick Tech Tuesdays, and we out of there. Anybody have any questions? Leave them in the comments and we address them, get more detailed if need be. But the goal of this was to simplify and let everybody know what's really going on, so that when you go to purchase a system and you put it together and it's not banging like you would expect it, this is most likely the reason why. Because it's underpowered. Yes, sir. It's your guy, and we out of there. A word unto the wise